Diane Grady, thank you for being part of the Leaders Unleashed series. You're chair of the Hunger Project and sit on the board of many other great Australian companies, BlueScope Steel, Macquarie Group. As a woman in a leadership position, there's a hot topic in Australia at the moment about women and quotas for women on boards and in executive positions. Where do you stand?
Well, I'm not particularly in favor of quotas, but I am in favor of a lot more proactive approach to getting women on boards, because I think that it brings a diversity, women bring a diversity of experience and perspective that is valuable. There's plenty of research that shows that having more diverse viewpoints in a team or around a boardroom leads to better performance. And so I think that feeling that this is important to the business is the starting point, and that won't necessarily be helped by quotas.
You're also on McKinsey's Senior Advisory Board and know what it takes to be a great leader. What advice do you have for people who want to move through the ranks and take on leadership positions?
I guess my advice would come from having observed a large number of leaders over many years. I think I figured that I'd worked with closely with over 40 leaders during my time as a consultant with McKinsey and also as a director of all of these profit and not-for-profit organizations. And what I've seen, the really good leaders do three things. I mean, they do other things too, but three things particularly. One is they have a real clarity of purpose, and they understand what's required in their organization at that point in time. Sometimes it's what's required is a consolidation, a stabilizing influence. Sometimes what's required is a force to galvanize change. And leaders need to understand what is the key leadership purpose in that organization at the moment, and have an idea of where they need to take the organization. So that's the first thing, clarity of purpose. The second thing that I have observed really good leaders do is being fantastic at bringing together a team. And by a team, I'm not just talking about the people who report to them directly, but a wide group of people who provide advice and support for the leader and for the direction that the organization's heading. Some of those, or many of those, are in the organization, but many are also outside the organization. And I think the ability to inspire people to work together and to work hard to achieve that purpose is a really crucial factor. You can't be a leader if you don't have followers, simple as that. Right? And then the third element is the leaders I've observed who are most successful have a way of being both courageous and collected. And by courageous, I mean that they're not afraid to take the hard decisions, even if those decisions might undermine their personal status, even if those decisions might be quite painful or difficult for themselves or the organization. But having made those courageous decisions, they're also quite collected in the way that they handle challenges. So they're cool under fire, but they're also courageous and not frightened to take a stand and to really push the boundaries if that's what's required.
As you're speaking about those three elements of leadership, it reminds me of the journey that a woman would go on in the villages when asked to step into a leadership role. Do you see any parallels between what it takes to become a leader inside corporate organisation compared to what it takes to become a leader inside the villages?
There's a huge similarity between the two. I mean, for the women in the villages, there's an initial challenge that possibly leaders of organizations don't have, at least not when they get into the senior ranks, maybe when they were very junior. But for women in the villages, first of all, they have to even imagine themselves in any sense a leader, because most of them have not had any opportunity to express their own point of view, much less take a leadership role in the countries where the Hunger Project is primarily involved. So that's a huge step up, and that gets back to the courage element, that they are prepared to make courageous acts. Then clarity of purpose. One of the things I love about the Hunger Project is it starts with mindset, and it starts by helping individuals in villages imagine a different future for themselves and get clear on what their life might look like if they weren't hungry, if their kids could go to school, and what are the objectives, what are the priorities in terms of moving their family and their villages towards achieving that clarity of that purpose that they've defined in their mind. And then in terms of team, I think that it's really important, and maybe it's more natural sometimes in the villages to pull together as a team, and that's really important too. And one of the things the Hunger Project does, I think, quite well is help people in villages to pull others from outside into their team as well. So asking government agencies for the support that they deserve, getting other aid organizations involved in delivering what their objectives are. So they not only need to work together, but they need to reach out and bring in the resources required to achieve their objectives. And so I think when you look at it that way, you can see that the three elements, clarity of purpose, building a team, and courageous acts, is relevant.
You're now the chair of the Hunger Project Australia. Why did you first become involved?
I became involved with the Hunger Project for a few reasons. First of all, I believe for a long time that international aid is really important. I don't think that we can pull up the shutters and say we're Australian, we're all right. You can just look at what's happening in the world today and see how interconnected we are. And I think it's naive to believe that you can have people really struggling just to survive and have a happy world in the long run, especially not with the global communications that we have today. It's just too transparent, the differences. So I think lifting all communities in the world up to a standard of living where people aren't hungry and they don't wonder whether their kids are going to be able to survive is really important. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I think the Hunger Project is probably the best, in my view, I'm biased, but the best aid organization in terms of the way it goes about making change. And one of the things I did in my past life was I was one of McKinsey's global leaders in their change management practice. So I really have a deep understanding of what it takes to lead major change. And the Hunger Project got it. And it starts by changing the mindset, and it starts with the individual. You can't change from top down. You can't tell people to do things differently. So it starts by individuals changing the way they view their role or their world. And then it requires setting clear objectives, measuring those objectives, making step-by-step progress. And it requires, I guess what I would say is a holistic approach, which the Hunger Project does very well as, and that is, it doesn't just work on one dimension. It recognizes that if you're going to have microfinance, it's important that you put conditions on that microfinance that help the individuals getting those loans move forward in other dimensions of their life. So for example, with the Hunger Project, to get a loan, you have to agree to send your girls to school. And you also have to agree to build a latrine in your or near your home, which affects sanitation and affects education. So I think there's many aid organizations that do a great job working on one dimension, curing malaria, giving microfinance. But what I like about the Hunger Project is it ties it all together, village by village, in a holistic approach. So, and that's important too when it comes to change. So I think the Hunger Project does it really well. The third reason is that it it does put women right in the center of the change process. And that's something I've been passionate about for a long, long time. One of my personal goals that I set when I left McKinsey is to do whatever I could to promote leadership opportunities for women, and the Hunger Project's right there. So I love the idea that women are core to what the Hunger Project does. And so, you know, those three factors, that it's important, it does what it does well, and it has women at the core of its program. So those three things made me really interested.
Diane Grady, on behalf of all of the investors in the Hunger Project, thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Joanna. It's very, very good of you to organize it.